Welcome back, Smackheads. Union Smack NXT UK Omnibus returns. We are going to look at episodes 66 to 70, a 5-episode omnibus for you, just for Christmas. But it is December, it is cold, I know you've all got better things to do, so I will not keep you longer than necessary. As you've probably seen, Travis cannot be with us again this month, but we will endeavour to get the band back together for the NXT UK reviews after Christmas in the new year, so we can bring you all the usual wonderful programming we usually do. However, right now he is away testing out new co-hosts for new shows, testing out special guests, just to bring you the best quality entertainment that we possibly can bring you in the new year. And 2020 is looking to be a very, very good year for the channel, for the podcast, so do stay tuned. Now, before I begin, you can find me on Twitter at The Perfect Tenant. You can find Travis on Twitter at The Habiki TMD. And you can buy our merchandise, the official Union Smack shirt, the official Habiki TMD shirt, the official Reset Button shirt, the official Tenant Talks t-shirt, and the official Union Smack Hall of Fame t-shirt from our online shop at unionsmack.bigcartel.com. Do log on to that. There will be more coming in 2020 for you to purchase, for you to represent the channel and show your support. Thank you to everybody who has done so already. Now, like I said at the beginning of the show, this is a 5-episode omnibus. I believe it's the most we've ever done in one sitting, but we are slightly behind. This will be the last NXT UK Omnibus before Christmas. It is the beginning of December now, so after 4 more episodes, we'll be heading towards January. But we will return in the new year, so do not worry your pretty little heads about that. You will also be able to purchase my second book, NXT UK Year 1, sometime in the new year. I'm hoping for a March release. At this rate, it's getting very, very hard to edit it and to put the finishing touches to it with so much work going on and so much going on in my personal life. But I will endeavour to get that done for you. And fingers crossed for another WrestleCrate collaboration. Hit me up if you're listening. So, without further ado, my friends, get cosy, grab your hot water bottles, get snugly under your blankets, because this is this month's NXT UK Omnibus, with me, the Maniac, Matt Tennant. And we kick off this month's Omnibus with NXT UK episode 66. Imperium are out to begin the show. And as usual, Marcel Bartel starts off speaking, because he's the best out of them all. Let's be honest. I'd rather listen to Marcel Bartel speak than Fabian Eichner, especially Alexander Wolf, and Walter, who still... He's got the grasp of the English language, but he still can't get every word correct. Bartel says that they continue to prove their dominance over NXT UK, and the most imperious and honourable champion of NXT UK history wants to address his kingdom. This brings about huge Pete Dunne chants, because let's be honest, Pete Dunne is the most imperious and honourable champion NXT UK will ever have. I don't care whether it's Walter, whether Tyler Bate ever gets the strap back, whether it's Jordan Devlin, Travis Banks, the list goes on and on. For me, Pete Dunne will always be number one. He's the British Ric Flair, if you will. Walter takes the microphone. He says that no one can compete, and then out come Gallus laughing. Now, I expected this to be just a boring shitstorm of back and forth, until it eventually led to a match. I was pleasantly surprised by this, as I'm assuming you were or will be if you do go back and view this segment. Joe Coffey basically takes the piss out of them for their clothing, and they almost border on faces here, Gallus. They say Imperium aren't the top firm in NXT UK, and then Mark Coffey calls Walter Jolly Wally, and then comes out with the line, "Before you start giving it Billy Big Bollocks." Now, if anyone doesn't know what that means, that's basically British slang for before you come out here giving it the big I am or pretending you're important. But I like that Gallus just went off and did their own thing, said their own thing. They got permission, obviously, to say that on television beforehand. And I very, very much enjoyed this. Not as much, however, as Marcel Bartel, who was just corpsing all the way through this segment. I'm actually surprised the camera did not cut away from Barthel. It actually kept cutting back to him, and he could not stop smiling, and he was very, very close to laughing by the end. Gallus then issued a challenge to Imperium, and we're off at the races. A very, very good segment. It was, I think it's everything I could have probably hoped for to begin a new chapter in NXT UK history. You know, Imperium are moving on from British Strong Style now. They're moving on to Gallus. So we've got another faction war. We've got another, leader versus leader, team versus team. And I'm very, very much looking forward to this as we go into NXT UK Blackpool 2 on January the 12th. Because these factions will collide in separate matches. And yeah, very, very good opening to episode 66. We get a Xia Brookside promo at the WWE UK Performance Centre. She reminds us of her victory over Nina Samuels and then says she's on the up and takes us back to the Download Festival when Kaylee Ray cast her out of the ring and cost her shot at the Women's Championship in that Battle Royal, if you cast your minds back to that. Xia Brookside says she wants Kaylee Ray to be champion when she gets her shot. They're now digging up the past to give Xia Brookside a reason to challenge the NXT UK Women's Champion when all that would have been needed was a clean victory over Ginny, a few, decent or notable victories in the women's division leading up to this, and then Xia Brookside would have been able to stake her claim anyway. I appreciate the effort of delving back into history to come up with a reason, but Xia Brookside did come off of this rather brattish. Like, you cost me this, so now I want your title. When, in fairness, Kaylee Ray didn't actually cheat to win the Women's Battle Royal. But the match is set, and we will hear about that in the episodes to come. The first bout of NXT UK 66 was Oliver Carter and Ashton Smith versus the Grizzled Young Veterans. This was, of course, set up a week earlier, or 2 weeks earlier, I think, when the Grizzled Young Veterans interrupted Ashton Smith. They had that little dull back and forth, and then Smith said he'll go and speak to one of his friends and see what he can do. Now, if you're going to get the faces over, this would have been the match to do it in. Carter and Smith are just jobbers at this point in NXT UK, so to give them something against the Grizzled Young Veterans, not a victory. Not a victory. No one wants to see Zach Gibson and James Drake lose to Carter and Smith. But, if you were going to get them over somehow, this is the match and the men to do it against. Smith hits a nice drop kick to Drake, catches him in midair, suplex, very well done. Carter with an Ushigoroshi to James Drake. He kicks off Drake and then hits a belly-to-back suplex on Zach Gibson. That spot is worth watching this match for alone. The GYV take control with a trip, running kick to the face. The slingshot backbreaker over the top rope is always good to see. I never get bored of that. Carter hits a standing lion salt. Then his hot tag to Ashton Smith isn't as hot as it could have been. I'm sure Jim Cornette would have had some things to say about that. Smith hits a lovely suicide dive to both the Grizzled Young Veterans. Blue Thunderbomb to James Drake. And at this point, I actually believed Smith and Carter were going to go over. Very good near fall. But the Poetry in Motion by Drake, which I have to say, I think James Drake delivers this move better than Jeff Hardy ever did. And if you don't remember the Hardy Boys Poetry in Motion, do go back on YouTube and see some clips. It's a thing of beauty, but James Drake, instead of using the whole side of his leg, just uses the soles of his feet. So it's a Poetry in Motion / grit your teeth effort, and it's just absolutely stunning. He nails Oliver Carter with that, knocks him from the apron, and leaves Ashton Smith alone. It takes literally maybe less than a minute, and the Grizzled Young Veterans win with the ticket to Mayhem. This was a very good tag team match, better than I was expecting, more competitive than I was expecting, but with tag team matches, I don't mind it so much as singles. It came to life more towards the end, and afterwards the Grizzled Young Veterans attack, but predictably, South Wales Subculture make the save and set up the next feud for the Grizzled Young Veterans and part of the story for the NXT UK Tag Team Championships going into Blackpool 2. Tyler Bate is backstage earlier today. He is asked about his NXT UK future. He says he will go with the flow and he looks forward to seeing what A-Kid has got. A-Kid, of course, making his singles NXT UK debut on episode 67, which we will cover in just a minute. It is worth noting, however, that A-Kid has fought in NXT UK before in a tag team with Carlos Romo, and he has had several dark matches. So, when they tell you it's his debut, it's really not. He has been on NXT UK television before. Grizzled Young Veterans are shown during the break looking for Sid Scala. Gallus confront them, and Gibson tells them to worry about the GYV and not Imperium because the titles are coming back. Ligero versus Travis Banks is up next. This has a great fast start. It's not wrestling as you'd expect. It's not British wrestling. It's not classic mat holds, etc. This is just back and forth, go, go, go. Pins, counter, pin, counter, etc. You get the idea. There's a lovely segment with Banks fighting out of Ligero's arm work. Ligero with a nice victory roll. There's really nice competitiveness here as well. It's not one-sided. It's not exactly so back and forth that you just lose interest. There's a really nice roll to the competitiveness of this match, and it's difficult to describe, but if you watch it, you'll know what I mean. Banks counters a suplex into an inside cradle. He hits a running knee. Very methodical pace as they chop each other hard. I didn't like that bit. It's, that was one of the segments in this match which led to an overall feeling of, too much cooperativeness, if that's even a word. I'll explain a bit in a minute about that. Banks hits a double drop kick into the corner. Some nice reversals of signature moves fluidly as well. They wrestle to the mat and pin each other with a double backslide, which was innovative. Sorry, I can't even speak to that. You have no idea how many times I've stopped this recording to have to re-record over myself because I just can't get the words out. Some will call it excited, some will call it very tired. Let's see which one plays out later on in the review. So they pin each other with a double backslide. It was innovative. I've not really seen that before, or at least much before. And the match ended in a draw. Now, it wasn't very popular with the crowd. At least the outcome wasn't. The match was received very well. It was very enjoyable. It did look rehearsed in places. Like when they were chopping each other. They were waiting for the other one to come back. And at times it just looked like they were waiting for the other person to do their move. There were times Ligero could have moved. He had plenty of time to move out the way, but obviously that wasn't what they'd worked out, and Banks hit his move. Same with Travis Banks, sometimes just waiting for Ligero. And it was to the detriment of the match that it looked rehearsed. However, it was very good, and I would like to see these two have a third match. We'll get to the second match in just a little bit, but I would like to see these two have a rubber match, on a takeover stage with 25 minutes, and, a bit better pacing so it doesn't all look rehearsed. What I will say, however, is there was a moment at the end of this when it looked like Travis Banks might turn heel on Ligero. And I think Travis Banks is now on a roller coaster where he's going to turn at some point, but we just don't know when it is. And that could be very interesting. And actually, it could save his character and indeed his NXT UK career. Next, we get a recap of Jordan Devlin and Dave Mastiff's confrontations. Then they tell us that A-Kid will make his debut next week. And then we come to the main event of NXT UK episode 66. Noam Dar, Trent Seven, match number 2, and this was a doozy. Noam Dar comes down with a towel around his neck, reminiscent of Trent Seven. The towel has RIP written above the British Strong Style name and logo. Very nice touch there. Trent Seven is all business. He looks like a complete badass. Dar attacks him as he rolls in the ring. Baseball slide. Ties Trent Seven to the post with the towel. And a basement drop kick to the arm provides Trent Seven's handicap for the match, if you like. Dar charges. 7 stars for the near fall right out the gate. Again, Noam Dar kicks out of it. That move needs to be put in the basement for a bit and locked away because too many people are now kicking out of the 7 stars lariat, and it has devalued that move to such a point where Trent Seven is now using the burning hammer as a finisher because the 7 stars lariat just isn't believable. Seven outsmarts Noam Dar in the early going. Dar hangs him over the top rope, kicks Trent Seven off the buckle, and then Noam Dar begins to play up to the character and the storyline, of taking the mickey out of British Strong Style. He applies an STF with a Fujiwara armbar and begins to shout, "I love you, Pete," as he works over Trent Seven's fingers, as Pete Dunne would have done. Then he puts Trent Seven on the top rope and hits a clothesline, but Trent Seven falls to the outside. It's very awkward. I don't believe that was planned at all. Dar tries for the Tyler Driver 97 and shouts, "I love you, Tyler." And before we go on, I just want to say that he's been given some hideous angles, Noam Dar, and he's been given some really bad stuff to do and say, but when he's on his own in a ring, like such a heel. Such a good, heel. He knows how to get heat from wrestlers and heat from fans. Underrated, one would say. Seven counters an ankle lock, hits a Snapdragon suplex. The dive almost breaks Noam Dar in two. Honestly, Trent Seven goes straight through him, and he almost shatters Noam Dar. Trent Seven counters a Fisherman's Driver. Noam Dar counters a 7 stars lariat, turns the pin into a double ankle lock. Very, very good. Trent Seven hits a DDT on the apron. Another 7 stars, which is again kicked out of. So that move is officially dead in the water. Dar hits a flying double stomp to the leg, champagne super knee bar, and then a nasty kick to the back of the head. This still can't put Trent Seven down. He bends back the fingers in Pete Dunne style, hits bop and bang, wishbone snap, and wins with the burning hammer. This was the perfect story for this match and for this feud-ending collision. I know they're drawn one apiece, but we're not going to get this again. So this was the end. Trent Seven won out. And like I said, perfect story. He used the British Strong Style moves to beat a man who had mocked that the group were dead. And, you have to watch this match. You absolutely must see this match if you haven't already. So that was NXT UK episode 66. A great episode, I have to say. I enjoyed it immensely, from the main event to the Gallus and Imperium confrontation. The tag team match with Zach Gibson and James Drake against Oliver Carter and Ashton Smith was very good indeed. And Travis Banks and Ligero, while being rehearsed, was still a very, very fun match. So episode 66 on the whole, very good. Do go back and check it out. And I've also noticed, I must add, that NXT UK are getting better with their promos and their interviews. There's not as many of them littered throughout the episode now, and it's more focused towards the wrestling rather than 20-minute interview segments. So very, very well done for that. And it also makes the episode seem a lot quicker to watch. NXT UK episode 67 began with Ginny and Jazzy Gabert versus Piper Niven and Rhea Ripley. This stemmed from Rhea Ripley coming to Piper Niven's aid a few weeks ago in her match against Jazzy Gabert. That is included in the last NXT UK Omnibus, so do go back and give that a listen. There is nice tension between Ginny and Jazzy Gabert at the beginning. as Ginny does the old Shawn Michaels thing of telling the giant, or the bodyguard if you will, to step outside because she will begin the match. Niven uses her power to dominate Ginny. Ripley hits a short arm ripcord clothesline to the fashionista and then carries Ginny up the steps from the outside and throws her back in the ring. Rhea Ripley has looked like a badass these last 3 or 4 weeks. You know, on NXT UK, and then her contribution to Survivor Series weekend just made her a complete and utter star. And if WWE or NXT mess this up, then you deserve to fail. Rhea Ripley is the woman who will carry your women's division forward, so do not fuck her up. There's some unusual pacing here as the faces dominate before Ginny and Jazzy Gabert, fight back from underneath. Should have been the other way around. However, the heels take the cheap way out. They dominate Ripley slightly. Ginny with some nice kicks, a nice octopus stretch. And then Piper Niven and Jazzy Gabert are in. Niven's double senton. Gabert with a spear to the Scot. Rhea Ripley's suicide dive. She almost breaks her neck. She's too tall to do that move. Way too tall. And then Piper Niven hits the Piper Driver for the win on Jazzy Gabert. Again, she pinned Jazzy Gabert in the middle of the ring. There's no heat on Jazzy Gabert anymore. No one cares about Ginny and Jazzy Gabert as a duo. And you've killed the German already. She looked really, really bad here. Ginny looked better, but Jazzy Gabert, the monster of your women's division, who will turn on Ginny at some point, whether she's a face or a heel afterwards, it's coming. But she just looked really bad here. So that needs to be addressed. We need to move on from this match, and you need to book Jazzy Gabert as a dominant bitch who will just take no prisoners and tear through whoever she has to tear through, because this is not what we need to see from Jazzy Gabert. We got another match up next. A-Kid versus Cassius Ohno. A-Kid's singles debut on NXT UK television. As soon as you see this, you think massacre. You think there's no chance that the smaller A-Kid is ever going to dominate Cassius Ohno. But he does. Ohno, grounds A-Kid with some arm work, which looks very good. Kid looks great escaping all Cassius Ohno's holds. And this is an actual proper wrestling match for a few minutes. And it's a very good one, I have to say. A-Kid is a star in the making. Cassius Ohno, a ripcord drop and follows it up with a senton. A-Kid, a rope-assisted Hurricane Rana, counters a senton into an armbar, which looked great. There's a nice pace. There's a really intriguing developing story throughout this. Cassius Ohno turns bully. Of course he does. It's his character. He starts off a fair, British wrestling style, and then just turns into a degenerate bully when he can't get his own way. A-Kid wins this by countout. And it's a nice end. I wouldn't usually, praise count-out endings, but it's very well done. He hits a 619 at the count of 9 to knock Cassius Ohno over and dives back in just as the referee gets to 10. It's very, very well done. After the match, Cassius Ohno attacks him with the Cassius Clutch, and then Tyler Bate is in to make the save. This is how you build a new star. NXT UK have not been great historically over the last year of building new stars. Ilya Dragunov started off fairly well, defeating jobbers, and then he just flatlined, and they're still trying to build him back up. Several others just have come in and just, failed to make an impression. Walter is really the only man in the last year to have made his debut and, make a splash immediately. So I'm glad that they're finally taking someone like A-Kid, especially someone as small as A-Kid, seriously. And I hope to see better things from him in the future. This match, though, very good. Do go back and rewatch it. We get an interview with Killer Kelly earlier this week. She's asked when she's medically cleared and says she is already cleared and she's going to pick a fight. I mean, best of luck with that, because Killer Kelly just has not been given anything in NXT UK. She's been a complete jobber, even when she's deserved better. Roy Johnson versus Joseph Connors. Yep. Now, we haven't seen Roy Johnson since 2007, when he lost to Pete Dunne in the inaugural WWE United Kingdom Championship tournament. But he's resurfaced here, and it's just a shame it's against Joseph Connors, because, Roy Johnson could have been something. But, it's Joseph Connors. Every time he comes out, I have to add, every time he steps through that curtain, my soul just dies. They build Connors' win streak like it means something when it means nothing. Connors wraps him around the post, hits 3 baseball slides. Johnson gets some stuff in, but, he does remind me of Big E a little bit, especially from behind. And then Connors counters the last set and hits the Don't Look Down for the victory. Complete filler. You do not need to go back and watch this. Kaylee Ray out, and she's looking hotter every time she appears, Absolute stunner. I know when she first came into NXT UK earlier this year, me and Travis, we pointed out her looks and, how she'd made some bad life choices to look like that. But do you know what? She is getting prettier and hotter and more desirable every time she steps through those curtains and into that ring. It might be the championship around her waist, but, do you know what? Anyway, she gets on the microphone and says that what makes the day better is that there's no Toni Storm. And I'll just insert a haiku here. That is obviously code for Toni Storm is coming back, which she is. Then her attention turns to Xia Brookside. She says that Brookside thinks that she cost her the title shot at the Download Festival, but she's a realist and did what Xia Brookside could never do and stand there as champion. Strong words, again, not the biggest build, but I suppose the story for this title match did, happen a few months ago. So, again, they have gone back on history here. Gallus cut a promo outside, telling Imperium to take note and say that next week Joe Coffey will make his return. Joe Coffey then says he'll steal them more gold, implying that he is next in line for Walter's WWE United Kingdom Championship. And I still, to this day, all these months later, do not like calling it Walter's WWE United Kingdom Championship. In fact, I don't even like calling it the WWE United Kingdom Championship. It should now, we're in December 2018, it should now be the NXT UK Championship. Flat out, done. But, fingers crossed for a rebranding in 2020. Dave Mastiff versus Jordan Devlin is the main event of episode 67, and what a main event. This is a true David versus Goliath match, but with the roles reversed. Usually David would be the babyface, Goliath would be the heel, so, the babyface can fight from underneath and topple the giant, but what a job both men did here. If I've got one criticism, it's that Jordan Devlin should have been built stronger for this main event. He's going to topple Dave Mastiff, only the second man in NXT UK history to do so. He should have been built like a king before this match, instead of struggling through matches with Ashton Smith and losing to Alexander Wolf. That's the only criticism I've got. Devlin attacks from the opening bell. Mastiff throws him around with a backdrop. Jordan Devlin is great here when he's begging off and trying to get some time to himself. He uses the top rope to injure the arm of Dave Mastiff, which comes into play in the finale of this bout. He works on it throughout. Plaudits to Nigel McGuinness here, who builds this match and Jordan Devlin as if he has no chance at all to get Dave Mastiff up for the Devlin side. And it's a reoccurring thing on commentary. It's like he can't do it. There's absolutely no way Jordan Devlin is going to get Dave Mastiff up for the Devlin side, which then lays the foundations for you to stay with the match, to think, well, he's going on about it so much, so maybe Jordan Devlin will actually get the devil inside onto Dave Mastiff, but I obviously now have to stick around to see how he does it, because there's no way he's pulling him up off of the ground. So, Nigel McGuinness, absolutely fantastic job. Jordan Devlin stands on Mastiff's face. This is very well structured, with Devlin wearing down the bigger man, limb by limb, bit by bit. Mastiff comes back with a belly-to-belly, senton. Devlin tries the devil inside, but Mastiff counters with a headbutt, sends him over the buckle. He hits a rolling senton on the outside. Then Jordan Devlin nails his springboard cutter, a moonsault for a lovely near fall. After the moonsault, after the near fall, Dave Mastiff kicks out so much that Jordan Devlin rolls backwards into the corner, and then Mastiff just follows up immediately with Into the Void. Wonderful, wonderful little segment. I really, really enjoyed that. It didn't come off too hokey, too cooperative. It just made Dave Mastiff look like an absolute fucking beast. Devlin falls to the arena floor after Into the Void to avoid getting pinned. And then we get taken into the final stretch of the match. And I have to tell you, this was absolutely perfect. Mastiff takes Devlin to the top rope. He gets him up for what is, presumably going to be a Finlay roll from the second rope. Jordan Devlin fights out of it, drops to the canvas, and then he yanks Dave Mastiff from the second rope and hits the devil inside from the second rope for the victory. It looked absolutely fantastic. Very innovative again. And after this match, Jordan Devlin didn't only look like the conquering hero, but he looked like he'd been through a war. Really good main event, really good ending. And I think this, can now be used to build Devlin towards Tyler Bate at Blackpool. It can then be used to build Jordan Devlin towards Walter somewhere, in WrestleMania season in 2020. Because if Jordan Devlin can do that to Dave Mastiff, then we've seen he can hit the devil inside on Walter in a similar fashion. So they can build on the fact that he will never get Walter up for the devil inside. But do you know what? They go on about it so often that might just be the move that ends Walter's reign. And I cannot wait to see, how they build Jordan Devlin for Walter for a serious run. And if, I'm not making any promises I'll get there, but if there's a takeover in Ireland for the title change because they want the feeling that, they had at OTT when Devlin pinned Walter for the title, etc., I will endeavour to get to a takeover Ireland, but I obviously cannot promise because it is technically a different country. That isn't the end of the episode, however. We are told that Alicia Taylor, NXT UK's newest announcer backstage, is following a breaking story. We're taken to Taylor, who is with Alexander Wolf and Ilya Dragunov. They seem to be arguing, and then everything calms down when Walter tells Dragunov to make up his mind, as Imperium could be very good for his career, or very bad. That obviously sets up Ilya Dragunov's choice. It's difficult because we're going to get into the choice later and I'll give my views on it. But I just think this could have been done in a bigger way, maybe. But we'll get to that. NXT UK episode 67 was another very, very good offering, I have to say. The tag team match to open wasn't miraculous, but it was good enough to do a job. A-Kid versus Cassius Ohno, you have to see it. Ohno making a star, at his finest. Johnson versus Connors you can completely skip, but definitely watch the main event. The episode sets up Kaylee Ray versus Xia Brookside. It again sets up Joe Coffey's challenge for the United Kingdom Championship. It's very well structured, and episode 67, do go back and watch it. Very, very good stuff indeed. NXT UK episode 68, and we are 3 episodes now into this month's review, and you can already tell I'm struggling not to cough. I'm struggling with my cracky voice. So if you hear any unusual cuts in this episode, or in these parts to come, then that is me stopping the recording to take a drink and then recording again. So apologies if you hear that. Episode 68 kicked off with Joe Coffey versus Tyson T-Bone. Very odd match, 2 heels to kick off a show, especially on television, but it mostly worked. They're trying to now build Joe Coffey as a babyface. I'm not sure it will work. However, the signs are very, very good. Tom Phillips, I have to say, is great on commentary. I was very weary of Vic Joseph leaving NXT UK for Monday Night Raw. I was very weary of Tom Phillips coming in to fill his spot. But I have to say, the transition has been seamless, and all credit to Tom Phillips. Very, very good job. They box to begin with. They trade knees. They trade punches. This is now mostly all Joe Coffey. He hits a nice belly-to-belly suplex. Lovely seated elbow drop. Coffey is very technically sound here, as he is in all of his matches. I am a fan of Joe Coffey, don't get me wrong. I booed the hell out of him at Blackpool last year, but that's only because he was against Pete Dunne. Blackpool 2020, which obviously Union Smack will be attending, front row this time. I will be heavily cheering Joe Coffey because I really would like to see him lift the WWE United Kingdom Championship. The match ends with the Glasgow send-off and all the best for the Bells. Coffey wins, and it puts him on the right track now to go on to Blackpool and really give Walter a proper challenge. I'm not sure it's going to be, the challenge Tyler Bate gave Walter, but I know Joe Coffey will give him the fight of his life. Alicia Taylor is backstage with Xia Brookside. This is the continuation of Xia Brookside versus Kaylee Ray. She says that Ray outsmarted her, and she's ready to show her what she's made of. We then get a nice little vignette for Ridge Holland, who of course used to be Luke Menzies. Even though Ridge Holland is a Yorkshire lad, this had overtones of London Mafia in, the 1800s, early 1900s. If anyone's ever seen the programme Peaky Blinders, it's a UK-British drama show. This reminded me of that exactly. Ridge Holland in the cap, the overcoat, the wooden shillelagh stick thing that he carries. It was very, very well done, and it tells us that Ridge Holland is coming soon. We get a special look at Piper Niven with a short sit-down interview. We hear about when she first fell in love with professional wrestling, when she began training. The vignette takes in her NXT UK debut, but sadly this could and should have been so much more. It doesn't cover her career in Japan at all. There was a wealth of footage WWE could have purchased for the sole purpose of showing us how great she really is in the ring and her wealth of experience, because everybody knows, she's been in Japan and she's been in scorchers with Toni Storm over there. Just works of pure art. But we didn't get to see any of that, sadly. Next up, Killer Kelly versus Isla Dawn. Now, this isn't as good as other Isla Dawn matches. But yeah, hands up, I've been praising Isla Dawn for the majority of this year, in fact. In 2018, she wasn't a favourite of mine at all, as I've already said, on numerous NXT UK Omnibuses. She's come on in leaps and bounds, and I've got nothing but praise for her. However, this isn't one of her finest moments, and I think she needs more matches against women who don't need to protect themselves so much or their own image and can focus on getting her over. Because Killer Kelly had an image to protect here. I don't believe she's won on NXT UK television as of yet. And of course everybody knows how talented and good she is over in WXW and everywhere else she wrestles. So she really had that to protect. And she couldn't help Isla Dawn out as much. Dawn offers some good technical ability here after a sloppy start. Nice drop kick, good solid arm work. Kelly gets some in, but it doesn't resonate. Whatever Killer Kelly does here, and whatever she's done in NXT UK in the past, just hasn't stuck with the audience. I can go back and look at an Isla Dawn match, and I can remember it a few weeks later when I'm doing this, reviewing a match for Isla Dawn here. I can go back and instantly remember her last match with Piper Niven. I can remember bits she did in it. I can pick out little points where she needed to get better, where she had to improve. I can pick out points where she had it exactly perfect, that she could absolutely build on and take forward. I can't do that with Killer Kelly. Nothing she did, if I didn't have it written down in front of me as I record this from our Union Smack Event Centre, I wouldn't be able to tell you anything Killer Kelly did. That's how little of an impression she is leaving. Kelly did, however, hit a double front dropkick, hesitation dropkick, but Isla Dawn won with Call of the Quarters, which, I must add, has changed. Many people's finishing moves in NXT UK have changed over the last year. Some people have kept the same name and just applied it to a different finishing move. Some people have kept the same finishing move and given it a different name. Isla Dawn's Call of the Quarters suplex has been given a different move, but, kept the same name. I think what Isla Dawn needs now is, like I said, somebody to obviously help lead her, but expanding on that, not somebody who can just tell her what to do and say, right, we're doing this, 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 and this. You do this to me, I'll sell for a bit, then I'll come back to you. But someone who can take a step back, who has the experience to pull it together if it all goes wrong, but at the same time say, do you know what, I'm not going to tell you what to do, I'm not going to lead this match, you're going to lead this match, and if you stumble, if you go wrong, if you lose your way, then I'm here to take over if necessary. That's what Isla Dawn needs. She needs to start taking control of matches, and then the rest will fall into place. We're giving a look at Cassius Ohno, who says he is not in a great mood and would like to talk about British strong style. He gives us a history lesson on what strong style is, and then says British strong style are out there doing what's cool, while he's showing people what British wrestling is. He says he will then extinguish British strong style for good. The main event of NXT UK episode 68, and yes, you're right, it has gone very, very quick this episode. South Wales Subculture versus the Grizzled Young Veterans, and this might be the second time these two teams have clashed in 4 or 5 weeks maybe since Cardiff. But this is everything that the NXT UK Tag Team Championship match that the pair had a few weeks ago should have been. Gibson tells them their reign lasted 5 minutes and asks them, was it worth it? That's a nice little moment. It's very slow and methodical start, which is always good for a tag team match because you know it's going to build very slowly towards a climactic finish. Subculture hit a snapmare dropkick combo. Andrews hits a wheelbarrow arm drag to Gibson. It is slightly oddly paced in that it makes the stronger heels fight from underneath. However, it's a small gripe. James Drake hits a nice backbreaker to Flash Morgan Webster, and I promise I will endeavour to stop saying the word nice. It's just that as I ramble, it comes out naturally. Grizzled Young Veterans hit a wonderful slingshot shoulder backbreaker, which is a variation of their normal slingshot backbreaker. The Tag Team Psychology by GYV is outstanding. Absolutely outstanding. They are one of the few tag teams in the world today that I could just watch hours and hours of back to back. James Drake holds Flash Morgan Webster by the legs on a blind tag for Zach Gibson to kick. Webster plays the punch bag before all 4 men really milk the hot tag perfectly as Zach Gibson pulls Mark Andrews from the apron. Gallus come out. Andrews is a firecracker. Moonsault. Zach Gibson catches him. Tornado DDT to Gibson. It builds perfectly at almost 20 minutes. 20 minutes, and I can't fault the build or the timing or the action at all. Andrews counters a poetry in motion with a powerbomb, which looks absolutely fantastic. Drake hits Grit Your Teeth. They hit a Ticket to Ride combo sequence, absolutely perfect. Webster reverses the Doomsday device into a victory roll. James Drake counters Mark Andrews' knee slide with a super kick. You have to see that. Perfection on the timing. Imperium come out to confront Gallus, and both teams attack Grizzled Young Veterans and South Wales Subculture, causing a double disqualification. Alexander Wolf is out to help Imperium. Joe Coffey comes out to help Gallus, and we get a stare down between Gallus and Imperium. Walter is out. It's 4-on-3, and then out comes Ilya Dragunov to make his decision. Where does his loyalty lie? He gets in the ring. Imperium make a spot for him, and then he walks over to Gallus, and we get a 4-on-4 brawl, which is great as the episode goes off the air. It slightly ruins the match, but again, I see why they did it. They couldn't have either Grizzled Young Veterans or South Wales Subculture looking weak going into TakeOver Blackpool, because both teams, along with Gallus and Imperium, will be competing for the NXT UK Tag Team Championships in a Fatal 4-Way ladder match on the night. So to keep everyone strong, no one lost, no one won, and the final two teams in that equation squared off at the end. Very, very good main event, bordering on excellent. The Ilya Dragunov decisive moment, will he choose Imperium? Will he fight against Imperium? Was very well done. I would have preferred if Ilya Dragunov had have made that decision in Blackpool. And here's why. I don't just ramble. NXT UK have spent weeks now building up the will he, won't he join. That could have gone on a few more weeks. They could have had the Alexander Wolf versus Ilya Dragunov match, which we got for the main event of episode 70. Dragunov could have lost, and then they could have used that to say to him in the storyline, you're not better than Imperium, you're not stronger than Imperium, but you could be as strong as us if you join us. And then, at TakeOver Blackpool, Coffey versus Walter ends, hopefully with a Coffey title victory, but that's not going to happen. I'm not kidding or deluding myself. Gallus and Imperium are squaring off, and then Gallus are outnumbered, and here comes Ilya Dragunov to make his final decision in Blackpool, and then he joins Gallus, or at least sides with Gallus. He's not Scottish, so he can't join them, but he sides with Gallus, and Gallus get the final word as TakeOver Blackpool goes off the air. That would have made Joe Coffey look strong. That would have made Ilya Dragunov look strong. Would have made Gallus look strong, even though they lost to Imperium. Now, they could have then taken that into the next 2 or 3 sets of tapings and built a real story to it, where Ilya Dragunov was the one who challenged Walter for the United Kingdom Championship. Again, just putting off the Jordan Devlin story until summer, which would have been, it would be great if Jordan Devlin just keeps getting, left back and left back and left back until finally he gets his one shot. He takes a shot at glory and takes the title. That's a story. But getting back to the matter in hand, Ilya Dragunov could have been Walter's next challenger. They've had some clangers. A 30-minute main event between them, either on television or at the next takeover after Blackpool, would have been wonderful. And Ilya Dragunov would have been a made man for the first half of 2020. As it stands now, after Blackpool, this story is going to be dropped in favour of something else. Gallus are going to be back to a mid-card act, and Ilya Dragunov will be back to defeating jobbers and then losing to bigger name stars. It's a shame because it had so much potential, the story, but I feel like NXT UK have blown their load on it too soon. Which is, it's an absolute, it's a tragedy, but what are you going to do? What's done is done, and now Dragunov he'll face the consequences of it. NXT UK episode 68, another good offering. Very good offering. I've been surprised how good the last 4 weeks have been. Coffee versus T-Bone, standard squash match to get Coffee over. Kelly versus Dawn wasn't really anything special, but if you're buying into Isla Dawn as an up-and-coming star, then it's worth the watch just to see her grow. And of course, the main event was damn near excellent. So check out the main event. If you're a fan of Isla Dawn, check out that match. The first match you don't really need to watch unless you're a Gallus enthusiast. But all round, episode 68, very, very good indeed. 3 down, 2 to go. NXT UK episode 69 began with Xia Brookside versus Kaylee Ray, and I'm surprised that even though this was a non-title match, they'd built it over several weeks and they put it on first. I would have put this on main event and given it 16, 17 minutes just to see what Xia Brookside was capable of. But no, they gave us it first on episode 69. It opened the show, and for me, too soon. It's too soon for Xia Brookside, to be knocked down. It was too soon for Kaylee Ray to lose as champion. So, this was a lose-lose situation. No one was going to come out of this looking good. And Xia Brookside is now suffering from the Ligero syndrome, where she's built up to a certain point and then she loses to bigger names too soon. When extending the feud, the storyline, having Kaylee Ray duck and dive Xia Brookside, maybe until TakeOver Blackpool, would have been a better story, because then Xia Brookside could have been added to what is going to be a triple threat match for the NXT UK Women's Championship in Blackpool. Kaylee Ray, Toni Storm and Piper Niven. That has been confirmed at the Hull tapings. I was going to say Brentwood, but it's definitely the Hull tapings. That is confirmed. That will happen at Blackpool. They could have added Xia Brookside to that, and the crowd would have been behind Xia Brookside, and then she could have took the pinfall and built up her comeback story from there. That's what I'd have done, but that's not what they did. There was a good technical start. Brookside is all business. She reverses an Irish whip into a crucifix pin. Another very oddly paced match to this. Brookside looks very lethargic for someone who wants revenge. She's been talking for weeks about how Kaylee Ray cost her a shot at the championship by eliminating her in the Battle Royal at Download Festival, and she's been really on this path of redemption, and I want revenge, and I hope she's champion when I get to her. And yet she goes into this, and she sort of treats it just like it's any other match that opened the show. You're here to put on a performance that people will remember. And when you do finally get a title match, people could look back on this and go, do you know what? She was really gritty here. She really wanted it. I could feel it from her. But here, I didn't feel it from her. And that, it's been a recurring theme with Xia Brookside over the last year. She's got into big matches where she'll just go all out and look like she wants revenge. And yet she just basically walks her way through this match. She does reverse a gory bomb into a backdrop and hits a Hurricane Rana driver, which looks decent. But Kaylee Ray finishes her off with a super kick and a gory bomb for the win. And that comes out of nowhere. No, the champion shouldn't be losing in this situation. But no, neither should someone like Xia Brookside just yet. However, it came out of nowhere. There was no build towards the end of the match. There was no hype towards the end of the match. There was no Xia Brookside coming close, but falling tragically short yet again. That was it. It was a gory bomb. Done. You built Xia Brookside up to lose like this. You gave us false hope that she would be the one to topple Ginny and Jazzy Gabbert and be the Daniel Bryan of the women's division. And then you give us this. You wasted her, you wasted the story, and now it's probably going to take another 6 to 8 months to get her back to this point where we believe that she can be the one. Sad. And the match, I have to say, odd and disjointed. Both women deserve more than this. So, I would skip this if you don't want your illusions shattered. We get a recap of Imperium trying to recruit Ilya Dragunov and Dragunov siding with Gallus from episode 68. Very well put together. And then we get part 2 of the Piper Niven Spotlight interview. She tells us that she wants to be a role model, that she was the only Scot to main event Korakuen Hall. Again, we get very few clips of her time elsewhere, so she can say what she wants, but at the end of the day, without some meat to the bones of it, it means very, very little. Next up was Ligero versus Travis Banks, number 2. You will remember that their first match ended in a double pinfall when they wrestled each other to the floor with a backslide, and then both men's shoulders were counted to the mat. We get tentative handshakes at the beginning. Again, just like the first match, back and forth, chops, punch fest. Ligero's handspring crossbody looked exquisite. You get a big sense of cooperation here. You can see Travis Banks waiting for Ligero's chops. They tease the backslide ending of the last match again. Fans aren't pleased with that. Let's not forget this is the second time they've seen this match in a night or over the span of 2 nights. So they're not best pleased that they may get an exact copy of how the last one ended. Banks hits a drop kick into the buckles, coast to coast. Ligero counters a slice of heaven with a sunset bomb from the second rope. That goes askew. Some really good pin reversals. Ligero kicks out of the Kiwi Crusher like it's nothing. Can we please, in 2019, almost 2020, can we stop kicking out of finishing moves like they mean absolutely fuck all? It's to the detriment of the wrestler. It makes them look weak. It's to the detriment of anyone else they pin with that move, because now it's like, well, one person kicked out of it, why can't everyone? It's ridiculous. It's a trend that really has to die in professional wrestling. The chops then become too much. It's almost as if they go to the chops when they run out of other things to do. Banks hits a fisherman suplex on the apron. This by rights should have crippled Ligero. It looked brutal. Absolutely brutal. But Ligero pops back up a few minutes later, hits a C4L from the steps, and then down comes Joseph Connors. And he pushes Ligero into the ring post. Travis Banks hits the slice of heaven for the win. Seemingly hasn't seen Joseph Connors attack Ligero outside the ring. Now, to hammer home the point that Travis Banks isn't on board with the Joseph Connors interference, Connors then attacks Banks from behind, and it still doesn't make him important. You're putting Joseph Connors in a situation with 2 men people still care about, and people still care about Travis Banks, believe it or not, even though he's done absolutely nothing in NXT UK so far and lost every feud he's ever been in. You're putting Joseph Connors in the middle of 2 men who can actually wrestle without putting us to sleep. And you think we actually going to care? Well, sorry, NXT UK, we really don't. Connors then takes the microphone and says it was supposed to be about him. He goes on to say that he was meant to be the original WWE United Kingdom champion, that he was meant to be a part of the first takeover. He says he's takeover worthy. He's not, but he says he is. And then he says everyone will suffer as long as he does. Believe me, Joseph, if you're listening, we really are every time you step into the ring. We're given another vignette for Ridge Holland. It's basically the same as last time. He walks through an abandoned warehouse in his Peaky Blinders jacket and says in his northern accent, NXT UK, I'll be seeing you. And we're told via the graphic on screen that he makes his debut next week. Johnny Saint and Sid Scala are with William Regal in the United Kingdom Performance Centre. Regal is asked why he's there. He says he's there to visit and possibly poach talent. I mean, really? It's like, as if we can't see that NXT are loaded with talent right now. So much talent and they don't know what to do with. In fact, they've got so much talent that they've got the best wrestler in the world today, Pete Dunne. I don't care what any of you say. He is number one. And you're doing nothing with him. That's how stacked the NXT roster is. So to add anyone else to that, I would advise against it. Otherwise, NXT will soon become Raw, where there's so much talent and nothing to do with half of them. Alexander Wolf enters and says that he wants Ilya Dragunov. They huddle like kids and then say yes. He gets his wish. And that will be the main event of NXT UK episode 70. Speaking of main events, the main event of NXT UK episode 69 was Tyler Bate versus Cassius Ohno. And this, my friends, went 24 excellent minutes. Now, it wasn't a patch on what Bate and Walter did at TakeOver. I've heard some people say this was better than Bate and Walter at TakeOver Cardiff. I don't think it was, but it came very, very close to tying that for quality. Cassius Ohno does a great job of being the jealous and disgruntled heel. There's some fantastic British old-style wrestling here. Holds, counters, reversals as they begin the match. Ohno applies a lovely sit-back camel clutch, which looks painful. Some wonderful psychology. Tyler Bate hits top rope headstand and head scissors. Looks really good. Cassius Ohno goes to the shoulder, ramming it into the post. Dominates with chops and violent kicks to the head, which look absolutely sick. When he puts his all into a kick, he puts his all in and he makes it look like he's going to take the bloke's head off. Ohno with a modified Cassius clutch and a French tie stunner. The moves in this guy's arsenal are just out of this world. In any other company, on any other day, Cassius Ohno would be the top man. He would be the champion. But he's surrounded by so much talent in NXT UK that it's impossible to get him to a point where he can really do the brand justice as its main star. Tyler Bate plays the same role here as he did against Walter at TakeOver Cardiff. Ohno counters a Tyler driver with a backdrop, which flips Tyler Bate lovely in the air, and he comes down hard. Ohno with a cyclone boot. Bate counters the bop with bang. Ohno counters a surfboard clothesline with a boot to the back of the head. How Tyler Bate hasn't had a concussion by now. And both men looked exhausted as they entered back and forth. Countless action. Ohno countered the suicide dive with a forearm. Dream Crusher for a great near fall. Again, it's another instance of kicking out a finishing move. And then Tyler Bate somehow, he got him up for a reverse aeroplane spin into the UFO. And Tyler Driver 97 for the win. Very, very good main event. I say good. It was excellent. There was nothing about this that looked hokey. There were no timing issues. Ohno looked vicious, like disgustingly vicious, like he really wanted to put Tyler Bate in hospital with his kicks. And Bate again played the underdog coming from behind and this time came out on top. NXT UK episode 69 once again featured a stunning main event. There wasn't a lot on the undercard, sadly, to keep you involved. Kaylee Ray versus Xia Brookside just wasn't at the races, unfortunately. Ligero versus Travis Banks, again, very good. It just adding Joseph Connors to the mix devaluates it a little bit. Apart from that, I would say go back and watch it. Banks versus Ligero, aside from the Joseph Connors thing, good. Bate Ohno, thoroughly excellent. 4.75 stars, if not a 5-star match. I can feel myself starting to get repetitive now as we enter the final furlong, so I will make this as short as possible for you good people. And thank you for staying with me all this way. I know it's longer than usual, but we had a lot more to cover. NXT UK episode 70 is our last episode, and we kicked off the first show from Hull with Trent Seven versus Kona Reeves. And of all the NXT wrestlers you could have chose, you've got so many men on that roster. American men, English men. You had to choose Kona Reeves. And you know what? Travis messaged me on Twitter after this match, after he'd seen it, and he said, trust Trent Seven to carry Kona Reeves to his best match ever. And he was right. This was the best Kona Reeves has ever looked in a wrestling ring, and it's all thanks to Trent Seven. Unfortunately, Kona Reeves still looks like he's in the middle of gender reassignment. I just can't get past the Caitlyn Jenner face. Sorry, but it's not working for me. Reeves mouths off before the match, calls Trent Seven out of shape and out of date. Trent Seven comes straight out the gate with a back body drop, hand strike, it's offense all from the beginning. No one's wasting any time. Reeves traps Seven in the apron, hits a leg drop, and then just sells well for everything Trent Seven does. Suicide dive, he misses the inverted moonsault. Kona Reeves is allowed, get this, allowed to kick out of the 7 Stars Lariat. Now, if that move wasn't already dead in the water, which it was, allowing someone like Kona Reeves, who is nothing in the wrestling world right now, I don't care how big a fan of NXT you are, this man is a first-class jobber. To allow him to kick out of a respected finishing move, just pull the trigger on that move and put the bullet through its head, please. Had it ended there, it would have made sense, but it went on for a tiny bit longer. Seven hits the burning hammer for the victory. Very good, very fast-paced match. It didn't waste time. It got Trent Seven over again, and as he's exiting and slapping the hands of fans, Eddie Dennis suddenly comes from nowhere, making his NXT UK return, and grabs Trent Seven by the hand, and they exchange looks. Spoiler alert for anyone who hasn't listened to Tenant Talks issue 5 yet. Eddie Dennis will battle Trent Seven at NXT UK TakeOver Blackpool 2 on January the 12th. Radzi catches Ilya Dragunov coming into the arena. He asks him why he sided with Gallus, and Dragunov says he wasn't fooled by Alexander Wolf. He says that Wolf trained him and tried to make all the decisions for him, but now he makes his own. And tonight he will step out of his shadow. I have to apologise, you can all hear my voice going. I am audibly struggling now to get through this, so let's crack on. We get the announcement of NXT TakeOver Blackpool 2. And then we get Jack Stars versus A-Kid. Now, this may look like a filler and sound like a filler to many, but this was a cracking match. Different side to Jack Stars than we've seen before. He wasn't just a jobber here. He was against someone of his own size and his own weight, and he displayed a very nice technical game. Wrist locks, there were transitions in and out of moves. All the holds here, every hold was a thing of absolute beauty. This was professional wrestling. British wrestling at its best. There was no high-risk manoeuvres. There was no, back and forth reversals of moves, finisher into finisher into finisher. This was just technical, hold after hold, escape after escape, and A-Kid finally wins by submission with what looked like an inverted regal stretch. I cannot praise this enough, and if you're a fan of actual professional wrestling, then this is definitely for you. Radzi is with Ginny and Jazzy Gabbert. He asks them to assess the women's division, and Ginny calls them all little girls, bashes Rhea Ripley, then calls Piper Niven a joke. She says she is championship material, and if Piper Niven wants the title, she'll have to pin her first. Grizzled young veterans come out for what you know is going to be another long promo, and thank God I don't have to sit and write it word for word anymore because I've finished the main portion of my NXT UK Year 1 book. Zach Gibson says they should be stood there tag team champions, but because of the stipulation of the match in Cardiff, it is the reason they're not. The Seller bounced back, and they were close until Gallus and Imperium cost them. They want to know the punishment for the attack, and they call out Johnny Saint and Sid Scala for doing nothing. Gibson says that they made the titles the most prestigious in WWE and around the world, but they're now declining in value, and they rile the crowd with mentions of Liverpool FC. Zach Gibson tells Johnny Saint to make people happy and that they're needed at TakeOver at Blackpool. That is a statement and a sentiment that we can all agree with. Jordan Devlin is in the UK Performance Centre, stood in front of her television. He says he's here to shine a spotlight on NXT UK and proceeds to show a highlight video, which predictably is all him. He narrates it fantastically, I have to say. It's very funny. And it ends on him beating Dave Mastiff, which is the last we saw of Jordan Devlin in an NXT UK ring. Devlin says he is an inspirational leader of men, bashes Tyler Bate and A-Kid, and challenges A-Kid to a match. This is wasting a huge story, unfortunately. You could be using this time to build Jordan Devlin as a massive face to face Walter down the line, but you're giving him trivial shit now against A-Kid, and I know it's heading towards a match with Tyler Bate, but I would rather see face versus face than Jordan Devlin just given a quick storyline after January, to get him ready for Walter as a babyface. Next up on the card was Oliver Carter versus Ridge Holland, and without me reading the result, I think we all know how this ended. With it being Ridge Holland's NXT UK television debut, it was only ever going to go one way, and with Marty Jones, his trainer, sitting at ringside, then Oliver Carter stood no chance whatsoever. Holland has the Peaky Blinders look and a great theme, as I mentioned. He uses a huge hip toss. Carter comes back with a head scissors takedown. And then it's all Holland. He catches him with a trap arm belly-to-belly suplex, then a double arm belly-to-belly suplex. Throws him around like a rag doll in the $1 Million Dream. Hits him with a huge rugby tackle and wins with Northern Grit, which is a version of a side Michinoku driver. Ashton Smith comes to check on Oliver Carter afterwards, but I have to say, for a debut, Ridge Holland looked decent. He's got a good body, he's got a good look about him. I'm not going to say he's going to, light NXT UK on fire, because we've seen what happens to the debutantes on this brand, but it's looking bright, let's say that. We're shown highlights of Ligero versus Travis Banks from last week, and subsequently Joseph Connors attacking both men. We're given a short interview with all three. Travis Banks says he didn't want to win that way. Ligero says Joseph Connors cost him a victory and robbed the fans. And Joseph Connors himself says he's happy he left a good impression on everyone. Make of that what you will. We're shown Ashton Smith and Oliver Carter during the break. Smith says they're getting better before Noam Dar sarcastically applauds both men, and Smith challenges him to a fight next week. Because that's what we want, didn't you know? We want more Ashton Smith on this show. Please, please, give us more. Ridiculous. The main event of NXT UK episode 70 was Ilya Dragunov versus Alexander Wolf in a grudge match. Very, very good match. Again, Alexander Wolf is one of the most underrated wrestlers in WWE and the world today. Has to be. He brought a great match out of Ilya Dragunov, and I know Travis thought Dragunov was sort of boring in the ring by his tweet after this match, so great job by both men. They had a mat brawl to begin. It had a real big fight feel to it. It didn't feel like a lock up, arm lock, get out of this, get out of that. This just felt like a I'm going to hurt you and let's just go at it match. And they did. It was a brawl. Wolf drove Dragunov back first into the barricade. Nice back and forth evasion of moves, which made it feel like a real fight. Wolf kicked the middle rope into Dragunov's crotch to get the advantage and hit a nice spinning DDT into the ring. Wolf's knees and kicks are as vicious as Cassius Ohno's. The aggression here is something you rarely see in any match. You know, I could count on one hand the amount of times I've seen any wrestler this year put in this amount of aggression that Alexander Wolf did into every move. Dragunov hits a huge suplex, chops to the neck. The back and forth battle is just great here. It's not smooth to the point where you know it's choreographed. It's just smack, bit sloppy, which adds to it, if anything. It's a battle of survival and attrition. Nothing more. Dragunov with a lovely Gotch power slam. It brings a great near fall. German suplex, coast to coast. Another near fall for Dragunov. Wolf counters the senton with knees. They exchange slaps, exchange punches. Bartel, Eichner, Walter, Imperium are out. Wolf catches Torpedo Moscow with a huge DDT and wins with his sit-out powerbomb. Gallus then saves Ilya Dragunov from a beatdown, and Joe Coffey hits Walter with a German suplex, and they have a little tug of war over the title. I was sceptical over Gallus being cast in a babyface role for this rivalry and storyline. However, I think so far they're pulling it off, because Imperium are so hated, and they do play the foreign invaders really well, and it's got to the point where British people would rather hate, you know, a foreign faction from another land than Scottish people. That is quite admirable, so well done on pulling off something which is relatively unheard of, because Brits and the Scots really don't get on most of the time at all. NXT UK episode 70, another strong main event, Wolf and Dragunov. Do check that out. Can't recommend that highly enough. In fact, I can't recommend any of these main events from this month's NXT UK Omnibus enough. They're all cracking. What the episodes may have lacked on the undercard, they more than made up for in the main events. From this show, Seven versus Reeves isn't very long, but is very quick and paints Trent Seven in a good light, as well as establishes his next feud with Eddie Dennis for Blackpool. Jack Stars versus A-Kid, top-notch mid-card match. Can't recommend that enough. Carter versus Ridge Holland isn't really a must-see, but yeah, to see Ridge Holland in baby steps of his NXT UK career, I would say yes, check it out, but definitely the main event. You can't go wrong with that. And that, my friends, caps off a very long NXT UK Omnibus edition of Union Smack for December. We did it, Smackheads. We did it. It was a long one, but I thoroughly enjoyed it. My voice didn't. You could probably hear me cracking all throughout that last review of episode 70, but it is what it is. We are a little bit behind, so maybe when we come back in the new year, we will do another 5-episode edition just to catch us up to date in time for Blackpool. But we'll have to see where we're at when we get back in the new year. Thank you so very much for listening to me. Do not forget to check me out on Twitter, at The Perfect Tenant. You can find Travis on Twitter as well, at The Hibiki TMD. Our online shop, unionsmack.bigcartel.com, has all of our merchandise, the Union Smack shirt, Hibiki TMD shirt, Reset Button Tenant Talks, Hall of Fame t-shirts, all available there. You will also be able to purchase my second book, NXT UK Year 1, sometime in the first few months of 2020. Do stick with the channel. I won't go through everything Travis has now, because he can put all the logos and everything he needs on the screen for you right now. But he has Hibiki Live, Hibiki Quickie, Hibiki Pro, Hibiki High Spots, Hibiki everything. All the best in retro gaming, pro wrestling, and new shows coming with new co-hosts and new special guests in the new year. So do stick with us. Do also look out for our Union Smack Christmas messages, which will drop on the channel about a week before the big day. But that's it for 2019. From Union Smack's main show, we will be back with Survivor Series 1996 retro review, and at least one more retro review before Christmas. Until then, my friends, have a very, very Merry Christmas, a wonderful New Year. We will see you in January. Until then, cheerio, mate.